We're good.
Thank you. I will call this regular council meeting to order. Please stand for the pledge. Mr. Cook, would you lead us in the pledge, please?
Pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
If you remain standing for a moment, please. Heavenly Father, tonight, Lord, we ask for your divine direction. In a world that is reacting to fear, we ask that you instill in us faith instead of fear. We ask that you keep our administrator, our council, myself, our directors, and all of our valued employees safe from this virus, and to keep all of us, including our residents, not only safe from harm, but positive in attitude, and in turn, all hopes that we can direct our faith and our positive attitude towards those who need help and consolation during this fluid situation. And we ask for all of this tonight in your holy name. Amen. Kathy, roll please.
Carter. Walter.
I'm sure he's here. We'll just come back to him.
Epperson.
Here.
Barstow.
Here.
Hampshire. Here. Lee.
Here. Okay, we have a quorum present. First thing on the agenda tonight, of course, with everything that's going on, the Morksey folks will obviously be revisiting us at another time, so no Morksey tonight. Is there any? I'm sorry?
I'm just giving crap to Tom.
Oh, okay. Mr. Walter, would you say present, please?
Present, please.
Yeah, there we go. We have a quorum present tonight. Thank you, Mr. Walter. Would you like to do the interview first or citizen comments? Is that any preference?
No.
Okay. Anybody wish to speak tonight? Okay. Seeing none, I'm going to pass the gavel to our able-bodied president of council for a interview.
Mr. Mayor, we have an applicant for a vacancy on the Planning and Zoning Commission. I see Mr. Broering in the audience, so if he'd come forward, please. Sir, would you please give us your name and address?
Sure. My name is Frank Broering. Address is 5810 Columbia Road Southwest.
Very good. You interviewed with us before, so you know what the drill is. Anything
sir.
you want to tell us? Anything has changed? We have your resume.
No, I'm just, well, I'd like, first of all, I was supposed to be here last meeting, and I apologize for that. I had a work emergency, so I appreciate the opportunity to come up and speak again.
That's fine. Okay. Council have any questions for Mr. Broering?
This is for planning and zoning.
Planning and zoning. Any questions? Going once, going twice? Okay. No questions? Thank you, Mr. Broering.
Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, there you go.
Okay, wow. Quick and easy. Okay, introduction, discussion, and approval of consent agenda matters.
So moved.
Moved by Mrs. Carter. Seconded by Mr. Walther. Discussion.
One thing,
Yes.
on the consent agenda, you'll find the motions to approve the agricultural district, the 3 applications for agriculture. The agricultural committee met 2 weeks ago and had no comments on those motions.
All in favor then?
Correct.
Very good, sir. Any other discussion on the consent agenda? Seeing none, roll please.
Carter.
Yes.
Walter.
Yes?
Epperson.
Yes.
Barstow.
Yes.
Hampshire.
Yes.
Lee.
Yes.
Okay, consent agenda passes. On to reports. Mr. Barstow, do you have anything, sir?
I'm sorry, I'm just watching the live feed on the election.
Whether we're gonna have it or
The
not?
judge is getting ready to make a ruling, but I don't know what he's gonna do. A couple things. We have a vacancy on council, and I anticipate making an announcement relatively soon on when those applications are going to be due. I have to check a couple things with the law director first, but I anticipate having that announcement. So folks are listening on this recording, word out. This will be, of course, just Ward 4 residents that qualify under the charter. So I expect that fairly soon. Kathy, I'll give you the particulars on that when we'll get that firmed up.
So we'll be posting that pretty soon?
I anticipate,
Okay.
and say I will, I anticipate posting that fairly soon.
Very good.
Thank you, that's all I have.
All you have? Mr. Zetz?
I have nothing, Mayor, thank you.
Okay, thank you for coming tonight. Mr. Administrator, what do you got for me?
Thanks, Mayor. It's been a pretty busy couple of weeks here. With all the COVID-19 concerns, the directors all sat down last Friday and reviewed our contingency plans, came up with a policy to loosen some of the restrictions on paid time off for the employees that we have, and just trying to be as flexible as we can. What we have done, we're still continuing to provide service to the public, but we are limiting face-to-face interaction wherever that's possible, doing phone calls and email communications to answer questions. Employees that can work from home are working from home, and staffing is at a bare bones minimum that will still allow us to provide services. So that's kind of where we're at now. The situation changes constantly, so this information could change along with that. We did have a conference call with Lincoln County Health Department at 3 o'clock. At that point in time, they reiterated that the limit for a gathering was at 50 people, and that there were 0 cases, confirmed cases in Licking County at that time. They don't report on pending cases, they only report on confirmed cases. So we didn't have any at 3 o'clock. How long that number is gonna stay 0 is not anticipated to stay 0 forever. So it's just a matter of waiting to see when the number goes from 0 to 1 and what we have to do from there. So basically just being as flexible as we can going through this process. So that's pretty much my report for the administration. That's taking up most of the time wearing the administrator's hat. If I go to the utility hat real quick, we had a utility committee tonight. I don't want to take anything away from Mr. Walter's report, but I did update them on the most current information that I have from the EPA as far as the WRF upgrade construction loan goes. So up until this point, we were under the impression that the construction loan would be 100% at 0% interest for the wastewater plant upgrade. We have gone through, as council is well aware, we've gone through 3 iterations of reviewers from the EPA, which has delayed everything every step of the way, at least a couple months. We finally got the PTI approved. We advertised for bids, and the interpretation as it stands right now is that the 0% nutrient reduction loan applies proportionately to the amount of that nutrient that gets reduced. Basically, if the upgrade is going to reduce 80% of the phosphorus, the 0% loan will cover 80% of the cost, leaving 20% as unfunded on the 0% loan program. So I have made a couple of calls and verbally been assured that these programs come in at 85 to 95% because it's one of their hot topic items, but was unable to acquire written assurance of that fact from the EPA. To complicate matters, the EPA is shut down for an indiscriminate amount of time. So one of the things that was brought up was advertising an addendum to push back the bid opening process until we can get some resolution from the EPA on how they would come up with determining the amount of reduction and then being able to relay that information to the bidders and to council and figure out where we actually stand with this project as it moves forward. I realize this is a change in the 11th hour, and that is exactly how I see it. Did not anticipate this happening, but that's currently where we're at now. So I'm going to do as much research as I can with people on their personal lives, but the agency is not operating right now. So I'm kind of at a standstill for that. I also wanted to just comment, there's a resolution on the agenda tonight for utilities, which is for the water tower maintenance program. It's been discussed a little bit. It was also discussed in the utility committee. I don't want to take away from Mr. Walter's report on that. But the resolution is a 10-year maintenance plan that comes in at 10 annual payments of $156,486. It's all-inclusive maintenance plan for 3 of our 4 towers. Headley Mills is not included because it was just recently redone. Outside of that, I don't have anything to report.
So you're gonna pull that resolution?
Negative, a different approach was.
Alright. That was, 2020-032.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Anything for Chris on both fronts?
Just a point of order, Mr. Mayor. Judge Fryer from Columbus has rejected the Secretary of State's application for election delay. I was listening to it, I apologize, but that's been rejected. So voting appears tomorrow will go forward as usual.
Thank you, sir. Yes, sir.
Just one other thing, Chris, that you may want to go into is the biosolids application.
Yes,
You wanna-
thank you for bringing that. So the plan at this point, as most council remembers, last year and this year, we're under a 2-year contract with AgriSludge to apply our biosolids to the field, after we lost the 2 employees that were handling all aspects of that at basically the same time. The concept would be to spend a year with AgriSludge while we adjusted and restaffed and then retrained the staff that we had, so we would bring it back in-house this year. In light of, one, the staffing levels that we have dropped to as a city, and to be frank, two, the amount of, the lack of time that I have to orchestrate that program, I've requested to use AgriSludge again for the spring application and bring it back in-house in the fall. That is still part of the same contract. The money for that has been budgeted in the budget for the year. It's just a difference of what we were telling council we were trying to do. I'm now gonna delay that until the fall, just for given circumstances at this time.
Okay, anything else? Good catch. Mr. Nicholson, what do you have for us, sir?
Thank you, Mayor. First, I'd like to publicly commend Mr. Shrock. For those of you who may not see him on a daily basis, he is doing an outstanding job as our acting city administrator, and I think I just wanted to call that out because you guys may not see it, but staff definitely appreciate the energy and enthusiasm he's bringing to this. So he's definitely not a seat warmer and definitely not just keeping things going. He's got a lot on his plate right now.
It's easy to do with staff with.
No, thank you. The COVID-19 is more than just the medical aspect and the staffing issue. The concern I have is the economic. That's kind of where my brain went first. As in residents don't work, restaurants close, people get laid off, what have you, we're not going to get income tax collections. We're usually about a 2-month lag, so by the time you earn the money and have the taxes withheld, Rita gets them delivered to them, they account for them, then they give them to us with the reporting. It's about a 2-month lag. So I would anticipate seeing revenues stagnating to falling off over the next couple months. This is uncharted territory for all of us. We don't know if this is going to be a 2-month, 3-month, 6-month kind of an impact. This is one of the reasons why we have a reserve policy of 25 to 35% of an annual year's expenditure. That is for this exact kind of thing. If you lose your revenue source or it's severely impacted, you have some cushion you can react. On Friday, I sent an email out and I copied council, just wanted to put this out in the public, however, that we're asking all departments for any discretionary spending. This is stuff not like vehicle repairs and those types of things. I mean, necessary spending would be spent. If, for example, computers are going to be upgraded, we're going to put that kind of spending off for the time being. We're not saying we're eliminating it. We're just saying we want to pump the brakes, see how the revenue reacts. If revenue, doesn't diminish dramatically, or it's comes back in 2 to 3 months, we can look at it again. The plan would be any of the significant projects that are currently on our plates and have been approved by council. We're going to proceed with those. The goal would be to maintain operations as normal as possible for as long as possible. We all know how this works. It's like a family budget. So if the revenue comes down low enough, we're going to have to start doing things a little more dramatic. The goal would be not to impact staffing in any way. The goal would be to find other alternatives, whether it be some projects. Maybe we do decide to put a pause on it for the 2020 or 2021 and move things out just to buy us some time. We are watching this very closely, but I just want you guys to be aware that it is a concern. I'm not overly concerned. It doesn't necessarily keep me up at night yet. But if we start to see a dramatic taper off on revenues, it will be a concern. So we're working with all the departments to make sure that we're all pulling together and that we're all on the same page, and I know that we are. So I think that we can make this work. But I just wanted to bring you guys up to speed on that. I'm currently in the process of calculating all the employee retro pay increases, and there's a lot of employees. So it's taking me a while. It's not as bad as the last time. Back in 2017, when we did the steelworkers, I literally did 11 and a half months of retro pay calculations for every member of the steelworkers union. So this is only 4 pay, so it's not as big, but still, it's a lot of stuff. Make sure that everything ticks and ties. So we're working on that. On the agenda tonight is a supplemental for first reading. There are a number of items on it, and I'm not going to go through them at this point. I've already broke them in my report last time, and they were in the legislative report. But I'd be happy to answer any questions you guys might have about any of that.
Jamie, a couple things on, first of all, on Chris and working. I know he's really busy because he calls me all the time, which is fine. That's good. And so I know he's trying to keep in touch. I know he keeps in touch with the mayor and other members of council. So I appreciate the directors and the staff for supporting Chris. It's a difficult time for the city until we can fill that city administrator job. I know the committee's working really hard to do that, but we'll get it done. I appreciate all the directors pitching in and helping out and taking on a little bit more responsibility. You guys know what to do and do it well, so thank you very much. On the fund balances, you know, right now there's a group of very irresponsible people running around town talking about the fund balances and why don't we spend it and we should spend it. So this is a perfect example of why we don't. We have a cushion. We exceed the state mandate. This is something the council has imposed. This is to protect the services and the citizens. That's why we do it. And shame on those folks who go around advocating that we spend right down to the zero balance every year and have no carryover. Thanks.
Yes, sir.
Jamie, down in the supplemental appropriations part of your report, I just wanted to clarify, you talk about items that will need to be calculated, included in the future supplementals.
Yes.
That will be brought to us midsummer or so.
Yeah.
And then you give a list of items that are not on the current supplemental. Are we to understand that those are the items you're talking about that will come
Yes.
midsummer, or are there other
No,
supplemental
those are
items?
the items. That's the
Okay,
items.
so there's not another list of unknowns?
No, those are the things. To be frankly honest, I just ran out of time, and I didn't want to rush and get it wrong and then come back to you again, and I'd rather.
Please clarify, the way this
Yeah.
read, it seemed like there might be this,
Oh, no, it
list,
was the list of all
and
the
then there's
items that
another
were not
list.
on the,
Okay,
on the
that's fine.
supplemental, yes.
so this is the same list.
Because when I gave my report last time, I listed all of the items that they'll be on the supplemental, but I just, quite frankly, ran out of time to be able to get it done well. And we have time with the budget to get that in.
So, good question. With the existing supplementals that are on tonight's first reading, there's a couple major items on there, very large items, $200,000 for additional street repair that would bring our budget from $650 to $850. There's also 2 positions, one position being upgraded and another position being brought in. Do those give you any heartburn or any concern with your email that you sent out Friday? I'm just trying to weigh this so I can understand
Yeah.
where the concern level is.
When we built the budget, I'll speak to, for example, the public service, the additional ad. We had a tremendous amount of savings on last year's program. So the fund balance, when I originally was doing the budget, the fund balance was projected to be lower than it was. So at the end of the year, when we came in at a higher balance, we end up kind of at the same place. So that didn't give me any heartburn. I mean, obviously, in light of what's going on right now, this was all done in advance of
Fully
that.
understand,
So,
that's why I'm asking.
not at this point, because I haven't seen the revenues change.
What makes me nervous is when you say the last thing you want to do is personnel. Well, to me, that would be don't bring new personnel on when you're at a position where you don't, when the last thing you want to do is get rid of, or well, have to lay people off.
At this point, I don't believe we are looking anywhere close to that. I think we have enough area where we can make adjustments in what we do, how we do it, what we spend on doing that, and that we can make that work at this time. I think we have enough reserves plus enough current budget, that I think we're okay. So I don't want to be an alarmist, I just want council to be aware that, you know, that I'm watching it, because if the revenue starts to turning, this conversation is gonna change. And we're gonna have to have those conversations with department heads, and they're aware of it. I mean, we had a conversation about that.
Would it be, so that's the other side of it. Well, is it something that you would advise to hold and wait to have some view of the future, when the future does actually occur in 2 or 3 months? Or, I'm just concerned about, we've got, and I'm not saying I'm against any of them, I'm asking you your personal opinion of, okay, should we pump the brakes, as you say,
Right.
and wait and see? I mean, we've been operating with a service department that's had, you know, six or 7 guys, you know, and in the organization that they've had for quite a while. And I don't know that it's broken, but I'm certainly gonna ask Alan that. If it's not broken right this moment, do we need to hold and wait to see what happens? Would that be prudent?
I would defer to the administrator as far as whether it's prudent to bring additional staff on. And honestly, I mean, if I'm looking just from purely fiscal perspective, that's one thing, but it's more than just fiscal, so I don't want to step on, you know, the administration's toes.
Fair enough.
So.
Thanks.
I'll defer to the
Administrator?
Administrator.
No, I was just gonna say that, obviously, Alan has been going through a lot of analysis of his department before he came up with these new positions that he's asking for. And at this time, if we're not seeing the fiscal turnaround, but we definitely see the amount of benefit the department could use for the employees, I do not have reservations about these requests currently.
As a follow-up on that, the crew leader position, there are 2 crew leader positions proposed. I don't know if both of them are gonna get added immediately or not, but potentially, let's say a person on staff, one of the existing members goes up to crew leader, we wouldn't necessarily have to backfill that position right away. So it wouldn't necessarily mean that we would be increasing staff right away.
That was exactly gonna be my
Yeah,
comments,
yeah.
my questions to Alan.
And that's the
so-
kind of conversation I think the 3 of us need to
I
have.
certainly understand that he's put this together, done a
Yeah.
lot of analysis on it, but that was probably 2 weeks ago. And it wasn't
Yeah.
not that long ago that we were in a totally different world.
It
So-
seems like 6 months ago.
Yeah, okay, perfect, thanks.
Well, I think you've been asking for an employee for quite some time, but you're up next anyway, so go ahead.
So I'll jump right into that then. The rationale on that, again, our current staffing is 7 crew members and 1 supervisor. That leads to some challenges. Clear chain of command when we jump into different crews. You have 3 guys that are at the equal level and nobody really knows who's in charge. You're not my boss kind of scenario. Doesn't happen often, but we're trying to avoid those things. There's really not much of a path for upward mobility, and this, of course, would add just 1 additional staff member, with the proposed being 1 supervisor, 2 crew leaders, and reducing to 6 crew members. Obviously, these crew leaders would still be working positions as well. And again, this was all created well before the current situation. In light of your question, I think maybe go ahead and approve these crew leader positions, and maybe only filling 1 of them currently, depending on how this looks in the future, might be a good way to move forward. Do we want to have any other commentary on that one before I move forward with any other? Okay, the other one is the supplemental for the streets program. What we found once we put the streets together and really started looking at them, the ideal treatments to get the most longevity out of these streets ended up being somewhere around $775,000 when we originally budgeted $650,000. We did already go ahead and get authorization to bid on that, and what we did is moved one of those streets to an alternate bid so that we could still award a base bid and then have this as an alternate bid. The savings here, we'd already talked about the Town Street savings for the Town Street trunk sewer. That was 2019 actual versus budgeted. There was $300,000 that we just never encumbered out of the 2019 budget. The additional savings comes from purchase orders that were closed after the turn of the year, so they weren't included in the budget, and then we closed out things. These primary savings came from 2 projects. The 2018 streets program, there's $120,000 of savings. Again, that wasn't factored into the 2020 budget and was closed after the year-to-date report was ran. The second was for Mink Street Phase 2. These were purchase orders that have been open for a few years, because with the state-run program, they don't close them out. or they'll come back 2 years later and say, oh yeah, you owe us more money, so we left them on those. I did get confirmation that all work is complete with those, so we were able to close those, and that was another $105,000. So those two alone, or those three alone, cover the requested, and that is again on top of any of the carryover balance that we had. And then I was actually able to close out some other purchase orders between another $50,000 and $100,000 of savings on top of all of that. And other two things that I have on tonight's agenda for resolutions, 1030 for acceptance of Broadmoor Phase 5 infrastructure. All items have been completed for that project. And then 031 is to advertise for the Pataskala Safe Travel Plan Phase 3 project. Plans are complete on that, and the bid opening would be next month. And then one other note is we do have a bid opening scheduled for the Taylor Road project this week. Probably going to push that out a week for now, just because in light of all the things that are going on. And happy to answer any questions.
Anything for Alan? Yes, sir.
Alan, just to make sure, the Town Street sanitary you mentioned wasn't done, correct? It was an item that was budgeted, but it was not performed, is that correct? You said the Town Street sewer?
Town Street trunk sewer, yes.
Trunk sewer.
That was not included in the 2020 budget. We found the $300,000 in savings, and that was presented at the time where that was the 2019 actual versus spended, the budgeted amount versus the actual spent, and that's where that $300,000 was. We never even encumbered any of that money in 2019 budget.
Oh, okay, I understand, okay. Some of the extras that we did have for Mink, the Mink Street project, buying the house, coming back and repaving, the signal work that had to be done, those kind of things. When you say the budget wasn't encumbered, are you including those extras happening, or are those in a separate line item that gets supplemental, right, that gets the money? But I'm just wondering how you're doing your math.
So those were all basically wiped clean when we did the 2020 budget. All that money was assumed to be spent, and the 2020 budget and the carryover that we produced from that was basically after assuming all that was spent. Did I say that right? That makes sense?
So we did spend that money, obviously, right?
Correct.
So the budget, let's just say the original budget for Mink Street was X, right? We supplemented that with additional monies for those extras, whatever they were, whatever that money was. So it was X plus Y. We
Correct.
spent that money, right?
Correct.
So the $105,000 that you're talking about that was an open PO,
Correct.
what does that reflect? Does that reflect, the question is, when you look at a budget and you take all the ins and outs, right? We were over budget,
Yes.
essentially.
Yes.
But we had a PO that was even higher than being over budget, correct? We had $105,000 that we didn't spend. That doesn't mean we were under budget by $105,000. It just means we had an original budget that we supplemented that we didn't spend all of that money. Is that the right way to put that?
I guess I've never actually went back and looked at the total Mink Street Phase 2 budget. We definitely had some overages. We were assuming that these POs that were out there were gonna be needed to be spent, so that definitely took us over. At the end of the day, with closing these, there may have actually been some savings on Mink too. I'd have to go back and look. I guess what I'm saying is when we created the 2020 budget, we assumed all that was gonna be spent, and our carryover balance that we did create, I assumed all that was gonna be spent.
So it's not necessarily whether or not the project came in under budget or not. It's just the money you had allocated for it, whether it was over budget by whatever, $105,000, and you just didn't spend it. That's what you're saying, right? Is that?
Yes.
Okay, just making sure I was clear on that. I have one more.
Sure.
Just one more quick question on the roadway, this ramp. I know you don't want to call it ramp anymore, but the ramp that you're proposing to spend $200,000 additional, so $850,000.
Yes.
In your estimate, 775 or whatever the case is. Are you saying that our budget should, from here forward, be the 700 and, should it be more than 650? Or, I mean, is that inadequate for a yearly ramp expenditure? Or are these roads unique in some way that they've got to spend more money on?
So the short answer is yes, and moving out in the years in the CIP, I've increased the budget for the streets program. On this one, the initial estimates were a little bit lower. When we did the assessment at the end of the year last year, things were a little bit worse than what we had thought they were going to be. And to get the like I said, the treatment that'll give us the best longevity out of this was a little bit more expensive.
You say longevity, is that fixing more potholes, is that, what do you mean by that?
Doing more base repair, and a lot of us doing base repairs and some drainage work to make them, make sure the water gets off, not saturated and subgrade, and getting potholes quicker than we should.
Got it, thanks.
Anything, yes, sir?
Yeah, Al, I think it's great that we're spending more money on streets, and I'm sure the residents appreciate the fact that streets that are in need of repair, potholes, water, drainage, whatever, ditches being fixed, are being fixed this year as opposed to 21 or 22, so thank you.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Concur, and we need to set up a street committee meeting. Jude, you're the only other street committee member at this moment.
I don't think so.
No, I said Jude.
Oh, Jude, I thought you said
Yeah,
you.
No, Jude. So are you available to come in on the 30th on an off Monday? What is the earliest time that you'd be?
5:15.
5:15. Does that work for you?
That will work well
So
for
why
me.
don't we say 5:30, just so you have a cushion? So 5:30 on the 30th?
Perfect.
Okay.
Thank you.
Anything else for Alan? I had a resident today, could you let me know when Graham Road is on the road program? I'd like to, let that resident know, please. Yes.
We've
Alan?
talked about Graham, and unfortunate, because I've had some concerns about Graham myself. What was the specific concern that the resident had?
She's coming apart.
What part of it?
All of it.
But where's she at specifically?
Between,
Summit and Main.
between Summit and,
Right in the construction area.
between Summit and Dixon, actually, was the worst part. I traveled it today just to
Was?
make sure,
Yeah,
so.
it's bad all the way
Yeah,
through.
It's bad all over.
And it's the shaded, it's the shaded areas again, like we had on Headley's Mill, that stay wet and then they freeze and thaw, but, you know, we're pretty well caught up, I think, but we've got a few, I mean, we're gonna always be doing it. I mean, when we get done with the last road, we're gonna start back on the first one, so that's what we always say, so, but, yes, sir.
Alan, just one other quick, your update on tornado sirens. Last one you have in your report is February 3rd, or February 5th. Has there been additional testing in March?
They did one on the first Wednesday in March, however, they usually do it between 12:15 and 12:25. So I did not have anybody on station when they decided to do it at 2 after 12. I heard the one back here. We have gone through and had BNC Communications just in the past 2 weeks go through and check all of our sirens. There were a couple drivers that were found to be non-functioning, but each siren has 4 drivers, and a driver on each, on 2 different sirens was not operational. So we're gonna do an additional check here in about 6 months, because talking with Sean Grady with EMA, losing 1 driver out of the 4 doesn't really reduce the decibel level by more than about 2. It doesn't affect it until you lose actually 2 to 3 of the drivers. So that's my plan moving forward.
Yeah, the 2 days they were doing testing, I heard them, and then you're right, it went off right at noon, last Wednesday, and I was like, whoa, that's normally not our schedule.
And they did the first Wednesday, and then they did it last Wednesday as well. So I don't know if they've moved to every Wednesday now instead of just once a month. I'm not sure.
We asked them to do that,
Did we?
yes.
I was unaware of that. Thank you. Okay.
Yeah, Franklin County's been doing every Wednesday at noon, since
Yes.
30 years, I think.
I thought I CC'd you on that, he had reached out and, to all the Licking County mayors and leaders and stuff and said, you know, what would you prefer, and everybody came back with, that the residents would love to hear them once a week on Wednesdays, so,
Okay. I didn't see-
I'm sorry if that didn't get down to you, but I think that's what we're doing now.
Did they say anything about the time difference then, or whether they're gonna do 12:15 or 12? Okay, I'll still reach out to Sean about that one. Thank you.
Thank you. Anything else for, Alan? Thank you, sir. Scott?
Thank you, Mayor. One item I'd like to highlight in my report is the Sage Point subdivision that's located on the northeast corner of Summit and Cleveland. On February 18th, that was tabled by council to send it back to the Planning and Zoning Commission to address some concerns that council had. That is on the agenda for the April 1st Planning and Zoning Commission meeting. Following a recommendation from them, it will come back up to council for consideration. Aside from that, be happy to answer any questions.
Yes, sir.
I was under the understanding that that did not have to go back down. I could be completely wrong. I didn't realize that was going back down to, I'm sorry, Sage. I was thinking, I just had,
Scenic view?
I had a brain cramp, I'm sorry. I had Sage Point and Scenic View mixed up. So Sage Point's the one that Connie's representing.
That's correct.
My bad on that, sorry.
Anything else for Scott?
I get it all mixed up.
Thanks, sir.
Mhm.
Mr. Crawford?
Thank you, Mayor. First, I would like to give an update on behalf of the Pataska Lions Club. Sarah McGuire called on Friday and gave an update stating that the Easter egg hunt has been postponed. So I just wanted to make that public knowledge that the Easter egg hunt that was scheduled for April 4th has been postponed. I'll hear back from the Pataska Lions Club in due time, studying all the issues going on now. The soccer season also has been postponed. We are not canceling as of right now. Soccer is a year-round sport, so I'm hoping that the residents who have paid thus far are willing to also take this season into the summer, depending after 8 weeks, however long we have to be off. Hopefully we can continue through the summer months to have a season and be back-to-back seasons at that point. Roughly 2 weeks ago, we had a nice meeting with Mr. Chirac, the mayor, myself, Scott, and also Richard Wall with the Licking County Park District. At that meeting, we discussed potential partnership amongst the county and also ourselves. It was a very good meeting. First thing that we discussed was a Foundation Park walking path. Per Scott's recommendation, we had a 6-foot and an 8-foot option for quotes. And per our code, we recommended that we also do a 8-foot. And per the mayor's recommendations, we don't want to half do a job, we want a full job if they're planning to partner with us in some way. If you don't recall, in the fall of 2019, BJ and myself met with TJ Evans Foundation and met with Jennifer, and I think her name is Sarah, at that time. And at that time, I brought renderings for Foundation Park Trail. And coming from the last meeting, we discussed that the TJ Evans were meeting actually today and actually had this project to discuss, whether they were going to help chip in some way with this project. Some numbers to throw out there. With the original quote that we received in the fall from Hall, that was $112,000 just for aggregate base. So at that time, we were just thinking of phasing it in and not necessarily doing the full project. And then once we had that meeting, immediately I went, spoke with spoke with Scott Haynes about the project, and he gave me a updated quote with asphalt. And with that updated quote, it jumped up to $282,000. So I have not given this number to Richard Waugh or the foundation at this point. But at the time that we met, we came to the, agreement that if we would have bumped the price up to $120,000, we would split it a third. So we said 40 grand, 40 grand, 40 grand if the foundation wanted to participate in, this partnership or collaboration to make a path occur within Foundation Park. So tomorrow we'll discuss, these numbers and figure out how to move forward in our Parks Board meeting with the help of Mr. Walther. And we hope that whether it be this year or next year, if they come back and say, hey, $282,000 is way too much, I am all on board, and also mentioned this in the meeting, to do a recreational trails grant. And at that time, we would, split 50% of the match at that point to ensure that this project was completed at least by the end of this year or next year at some point. So that's the good news, that the county is looking to partner with us, and we're open to that. And Mr. Zetz, I have a draft agreement that he drafted and brought to us, so I will make sure you get that within the next couple of days just for your review. And I'll also bring that to the meeting, Parks Board meeting tomorrow, to discuss and get thoughts and ideas on that agreement. Moving forward, also we have the supplemental on for today. If you have any questions on that, let me know. I did finish our interviews for our 2 seasonal maintenance employees. We didn't quite make an offer yet. We haven't got the BCI checks and their drug test back, but I'm hoping to get those back within the next 3 weeks. The two that I guess I offered positions to, there's no doubt in my mind that I made the wrong decision. I made the right decision to ensure that this year we will catch up on a lot of our deferred maintenance in our parks. One of the guys, he already had roughly 10 years working with the city of Dublin as a forester. So he has a lot of skills on hand to be able to ensure that many of the projects that weren't complete last year will be completed this year moving forward. Buildings and grounds meeting scheduled for April 3rd. At that meeting, 10 a.m., we will see Mrs. Hampshire, I'm sure, for the Lions Club project, which may be postponed or canceled at this time. But we will also see Diego Benitez, which is an Eagle Scout from Pack 141, or Troop 141. He's planning to do the outdoor games here at Carr Park, and also the Gaga Pit at Liberty Park, and the picnic table at Liberty Park as well. So you guys will meet Mr. Diego Benitez at that day. And aside from that, I'm open to any questions.
Anything for Lanier? You know, and Sarah had called me right away about the Easter egg hunt. We were starting to throw out some possibilities of even 4th of July in the morning, having a 5K run and then the Easter egg hunt while it was still early and nice, but that's yet to be determined or anything, but we would try to like to salvage it, so we are discussing that. And I guess as you talk about extending your soccer, if you keep in mind, July 4th is on a Saturday this year, so that's when we're having the fireworks. And then you mentioned the gentleman that has some logging experience. Oh, who is that now? I'm sorry, is it forestry?
Yeah. His name is Daniel Black.
Okay.
Lives local, worked for them for roughly 10 years, has a lot of experience. So I'm looking forward to, pending everything comes back great, I'm looking forward to the two potential hires we
You've
have
got
come
two
on
guys
board.
coming in?
Yep.
And who's the other guy?
Nicholas Garabuso.
Any other questions? Yes, ma'am.
Not specifically for Lanier, but when we started talking about trails, I just wanted to mention, Chris, the Taylor Road Trail, where they're putting I guess it's fiber optic cable in, they've torn it up bad, all the way up and down. What company is that exactly?
I don't know, I would pass that off to
Do you
Mr.
know?
Haynes, I'm not sure.
Yeah, Harris and Hebner was the one on Broad Street. That is Utility One. They are well aware that they need to do restoration. I do have contacts with them as part of their right-of-way permit.
But yeah, we've been keeping, Broad Street's tore up, Taylor Road's tore up, everywhere they've been's tore up, Jefferson Township's all tore to
They
heck
jacked
too.
my trail up,
Yeah.
so it looks terrible.
Yeah,
Duly noted.
So, okay, just so we know,
we
okay.
won't let them go, will we?
No, we won't.
I have some question, maybe we do, maybe we don't, do they post a performance bond? Do they give them a right-of-way permit?
We have that provision that that we can require that. We have not in the past since I've been here. I'm not really, I haven't been set up for that, but I think moving forward, that would probably be a good idea.
Would highly recommend that we do that on any project where we do a right-of-way permit, that we require performance bond for this problem. I mean, I noticed they're putting this fiber optic in all up and down the east side here, and they have in Whitehall, they've torn up the sidewalks, and in Columbus, they've torn up sidewalks, and so, the brand new sidewalks that the city of Whitehall just put in, they come in and rip them all up, so I, just FYI, it's not just us, it's all up and down the side of town.
We will put
Yeah.
that in place.
And the worst thing is when it's an outside if these guys are from Texas, cause they got the low bid, and they leave, they're not coming back to put seed and straw, so. Yes,
Well,
ma'am.
and I think, it's not just, where they've done the work, I mean, they've
Where they pull
been
their car
just
off and.
Yeah.
reckless,
Mhm.
and, I mean, ruts and, I mean, they've clearly been,
Well, the equipment they have, there's no way they could have, unless they parked on the road, that's what they're gonna do, and they just need to fix it. There's terrible ruts, so it's the equipment, they've got very heavy equipment.
they could have been there, they could have been careful.
Anything else for Al? All right.
Or from the mayor.
Oh, I'm sorry, for Lanier. I'm sorry, sir. Anything else? Thank you. Bruce isn't here tonight, but he did want me to share with you, this is what he sent out to the guys, concerning, the state of what we're in right now. This is going to the, PPD. Keep as safe as possible as we're implementing the following safety precautions. We know you'll exercise all safety precautions already in place. All civilian ride-alongs are suspended. If you feel you can efficiently take a report over the phone, you have permission to do so as long as you make arrangements to collect witness statements in a timely manner or by email. Do what you can to minimize bringing individuals to the station. Please make an effort to wash your hands, blah, blah, blah. Keep the 6 feet rule in place. Civilian fingerprinting has been suspended for the time being. That's basically about it. So just wanted to pass that on. Is there anything that you'd like me to ask the chief in his absence?
Mayor,
Yes.
I noticed, or I'd seen, I guess, or brought to my attention that there was a post out there about if you have kids at home, to let the police department know that you have kids at home. I don't know that the police chief, I'm not sure what that means exactly for the police chief to do, or for the police to do. It sounded like they were gonna stop in and check on them, or,
Yep, there were some requirements in place. You had to be in the city and you had to obviously set it up so that if the parents were working, and the officers had the time and it was in their jurisdiction area to check on and make sure that their children were safe and sound. So it's something that, you know, during the day, that's the time we do have, you know, probably 3 or 4 officers on the road, even with our overlap maybe. So it's something we want to try to do during this.
I'm not saying that it's a
I'm just trying
negative
to-
thing in any way
sure.
or shape or form. My question to the chief was, you know, I know we couldn't attend officer with a cop, or, the park, lunch with an officer. You know, we had to cancel that because we didn't have enough people to do it.
Yep.
I'm just.
Cook out with a cop.
Yeah, cookout with a cop, we had to cancel that.
Mhm.
I know we are, at least I understand, we're down in the number of officers we have. I hate to, and I guess I look at it this way, if a parent thinks that the officers will do this and they can't, I just hope we're taking that, we're notifying them and letting them know that we may not be able to do this. I can see that us running into trouble, especially with staffing concerns already, and there may be staffing concerns with the officers also. So I was a little bit nervous when that went out. I think it's a great idea if we can do it,
Right.
wonderful, but if we can't staff some other things, I wondered, I wouldn't want anybody to rely on that, is I guess my message.
Note taken, it was a reaction from Sergeant Ramsey, who felt he could get some of the guys to, you know, give back to the community during this time. And again, we're not, you know, I don't know how it's gonna pan out or play out. Nobody does about anything that's going on here, but we offered that as a,
Well, we all want kids to be safe, and
Sure.
I'm not saying, I'm just nervous about somebody relying on it, that's all,
Okay.
and not being able to perform.
point taken.
Okay.
Committee chair reports. Oh, I'm sorry. Yes, ma'am.
Well, and I'll go right into it then. First, on that same note, I was going to say that, as somebody who works in the schools, one of our primary concerns, was the amount of younger children who are gonna be forced to be at home because parents are not able to, stay home. I mean, not everybody's in the position where they can just not work and stay home. So, I've had a lot of positive feedback about that the police department and the city even thought to care that far ahead. And, you know, I know that one of my big concerns, along with kids not being fed, who rely on schools to eat, is that there's a lot of students who, rely on the school day keeps them in check. And they have a lot of free time on their hands now. So, those kind of things mean a lot when it comes to the kids in the community. So I appreciate it. I understand that it's not a guarantee that to what they can do, but any little extra that is given like that is certainly, especially in the times when they are short-staffed like this, to even offer that, to me, said a lot. So I greatly appreciate it. And if I have to go into work anymore, I may have to give them my address and make them check on those boys, so, just saying. Also, I have a committee chair report for the ad hoc committee, we have interviews this week. Mr. Sherrock came to let me know this afternoon, and it's not a decision I was comfortable making without talking to the committee members, is we do have one of our applicants who has said, if he can't do his interview remotely, then he would like to withdraw. And he's in Wisconsin. And it's, amid the, COVID-19 concerns. So my question to the committee, initially, and not to be callous, but we have a lot of very qualified applicants. We have a lot of interviews. So is remote interview something that the committee wants to entertain? Or should we say, we'll push that, thank you, we understand, and we'll keep you on the list, and should we get to that point, we'll reach out? I just needed some feedback before.
I have a tiny concern. You're not having a committee meeting right now, so you really can't have a committee decision as to what I think you're getting at, and that is, should we Skype this person's interview?
Right.
So just.
Well, can I get council, can I ask for council feedback on
Okay,
it?
council can feedback,
Well,
the
there we
committee should
go.
not.
So council feedback as to what we should do in regards to that particular interview. Mr. Marshall?
Thank you, Mr. Zeth.
So I have a question, yeah. Were in-person interviews a requirement? Was that something that was advertised, is you're gonna have to schlep your way to Pataskla in order to even be considered for the job, so to speak?
I don't think it was put out as a specific requirement, no.
Mr. Zetz, is there any problem?
Jamie, when you put, I'm sorry, when you
Jamie?
put the,
During the last round, when BJ was selected, there were at least 2 that we did set Skype interviews for.
we did.
So it's not an unprecedented practice for council, but again, it would be your call whether you want to do it or not.
And Mr. Zetz, there's no problem with, obviously, with someone, with an applicant Skyping or remotely interviewing, that's not a,
No,
that's not a problem, I didn't think so, it's not a problem.
And just for clarification, this is the first interview, or we anticipate to have more than one interview session.
Round one.
Applicants that are successful to move on to the next one. So personally, I wouldn't have any issue with it, as long as they have the technology, he, her, whoever it might be, has the technology to not make it frustrating, essentially. We're not doing it on their cell phones, essentially. That that person would have to be able to have some kind of ability to make it so it's not frustrating, we're not hearing every other word.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes, sir.
Mr. Lee has something to say?
Yes, sir, Mr. Lee.
I think that well, first off, do we have the technology?
Yes.
I know that when we did it the last time, it was challenging.
Second, I also think that, if there's a specific reason that is, I don't know how we determine that.
Well, they said because of the spread of the virus.
Oh, I didn't hear that part, I'm sorry. I don't know, I think we've got really good candidates, and, I think everyone else is making the effort, and I think that,
Well, and this individual initially did accept the in-person interview, and then has since come back and said they prefer to do it that way, or, so.
I think we, in my opinion, we can go with 7.
I'm okay with online.
You're okay with online, you said?
Interviews, yeah.
Yeah.
If it's available to anyone who would want it, why not?
We may run into more, this may only be our first one that says this, even though the local may come back. Let me put it this way. By Wednesday and Thursday of this week, we may be the only choice we have is to do it
And that might be the case.
I'm just saying that
I'm
maybe,
open to that.
that it may be, we may be forced to that point. I would be okay with that.
Who would, within.
That's fine, I'm not,
Hang on.
sorry.
Who would organize that and set that up in administration? How would you guys go about that?
I like how he looks over at me.
I was kinda looking at you too, but you know, I was getting that.
We were trying to work, it on, tonight we bought a brand new camera for tonight's, but there's a device we needed, so. The technology is better, we just didn't have it in time for this meeting. We can absolutely have it set up and probably do it up in the, admin conference room. There's the big TV up there, and we would just set up the camera facing you guys, that are interviewing, so that, you know, they could see you.
See, there's something we didn't have 5 or 6 years ago.
No.
So
You had to, like,
you could help us
project it
with
onto
that?
Yeah, we've got high tech, we got a big TV now.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah.
Awesome.
So is that something
Yes, we can
you
get
guys
that
can
working
arrange
for you.
with this applicant?
Yeah, I can relay the information to them all.
What's the timing, just so I know?
They are Thursday at 4:30.
Okay. We'll get it working.
4:30, I don't know, it's in there.
They're, well, since they're not coming in person, it'll be 5. They're
Right.
the last of the night.
Okay.
They were gonna come in at 4:30 to get the.
Yep, exactly. You know, fine.
Okay. Anything else on your committee chair report? Okay. Anybody else, committee chair reports?
I do. I know you have one too. Actually, I have two. I went and had a quick briefing with this is fire board, had a quick briefing with the fire department today. I was in there for probably a little less than an hour. They'd asked me to just come and sit on their daily briefing for the virus, and the procedures going on. They are, I was pretty familiar with it because, not to get into the weeds, but we all kind of operate under MEC for dispatching. So I was familiar with it because it's the same thing we're doing with us. And what I'm talking about is just like pre-screening at the dispatch level so that we kind of know what we're going into. So they're doing a great job with that. They have thought ahead, and they're using their stations for if there actually is a confirmed case, how they're gonna decon and how they're gonna work through that internally. They did have 4 guys on self-quarantine, and they are coming off of that, and they're gonna be back to work tomorrow. So that ended up being all good. And the only other thing that I think of note was they are working with Tri-Village Church. So if there is an incident, there is firefighters that are exposed, that will kind of be their, this isn't public, this is just for the fire department. It'll be kind of their off-site quarantine area. So everybody's very calm, no reason for concern right now. Everybody's just staying up on it. They're reevaluating every 12 hours, so they're on top of it. I thought it was very good. So I just wanted to throw that out there. Go ahead.
No, I just wanted to, I know Kathy was trying to stop.
I don't want to interrupt Mr. Lee, we can finish and then.
Okay.
Oh, okay. That's all I had. If there's no other questions, I'll move on to the next one. Go ahead. Did you have something, Kathy?
The interviews that we discussed, that meeting has been posted for at the police station, and that the interviews would be conducted there. Just,
We can make that adjustment. I think we can just do it at the police department instead of upstairs. It's fine.
Well, I'm sure the police department has the technology.
We have TVs too.
Yes, you do.
Anybody have anything on the fire department? Anything with that? Okay. Hopefully that was helpful. On to development committee, we had a lot to go over in a short amount of time. We discussed a potential community, CRA. Scott, can you just brief council on that for me real quick, since you have more of the details? They don't have this map, do they?
Is the Community Reinvestment Authority. So there's a gentleman looking at a piece of property on the northwest corner of Broad and Mink. It lies at the convergence of 3 different CRA districts. His intent at this time, and he doesn't have a lot of details, but he would like to do some office warehouses. And in order to make that site competitive, he would need a CRA in place for that, so it'd be arguably the expansion of one of the existing CRA districts. Development committee instructed me to look into that a little bit more, get a little bit more information from the gentleman interested in the property, moving forward.
With that being said, the development committee asked Scott to just go get more information and bring it back to us, and we would reevaluate once he got some more info. On that, we discussed the proposed comprehensive plan, kind of the phase 2, and how we were gonna handle it. Basically what we're gonna do is, we're gonna take it, there's 7 parts to that, we're gonna take it part by part. And each committee meeting, we're going to look at a part, weigh in on it, and report back to council. We may do, we'll just see how the first meeting goes, we might do 1 and 2 together, because those are kind of small, but moving forward, the map's a big part. But that's our plan, is to step by step, and then report back to council after each one. You'll get sick of hearing from me, but I'm gonna bug you guys so tomorrow or the next day, I'm gonna ask council for feedback on part 1 and 2. So we have your feedback before the meeting, and we can use that at the meeting to move forward. So, at each step, I'm gonna be asking for feedback. At the same time, Scott's talking to the company, OHM, to see if we can get access to the map, to kind of massage that map as we go, because that's the biggest part, and we wanna use that, be able to see that map up on the screen and kind of talk about it as we go. You've already seen the email, please give me feedback on the map, and I would say, I'll remind it in an email, but go ahead and send me, feedback on part 1 and 2, and the map. So that's our plan moving forward. Also, we're gonna get pricing on, some different parts to OHM, kind of the à la carte pricing on to finish this thing out, because we've ran out of our allotted money. So we need to get some pricing and bring that back to council. The last thing is Scenic View Estates, not Sage Point. We discussed that. They made some changes and brought those back to Scott. Scott brought them to us. And we didn't have a lot of time to discuss it, but I do intend to make a motion to bring that off the table for discussion tonight. If there is a second, then we can discuss it amongst ourselves and decide how we want to move forward with it. Maybe we put it back on the table, I don't know, but I do intend to do that. So, is there any questions for me? That's all I got then.
Any other committee chairs, reports?
I've got a utility committee from this evening. We met this evening and talked about a number of different items. One of them is on the agenda for this evening, the water tower maintenance program. We passed a motion to support that item, resolution, I believe, and asked that Chris look into a couple different questions to clarify with Jamie and with Mr. Zetz, specifically regarding the contract and how certain questions would be handled within the contract. What we noted in there was there's a 10-year payment plan essentially, and work happens at different times during that 10 years. And I think there were a couple questions of if you paid in for a few years, how are you guaranteed that there'd be the work being completed? So we did support it because getting the first tower completed this summer is very important, and to do that, Chris needs to have this program moving forward. The well cleaning for wastewater treatment plant 2, there's 2 wells there. He received 3 bids. One that we looked at was Moody's. We've worked with them before, so we supported him moving forward with that project. As Chris had mentioned, the WRF upgrade project, looks like we ran into a little bit of a snag with Ohio EPA. The committee made the suggestion to potentially move back or amend the bid documents to to move the award date back, to give enough time for Ohio EPA to answer some questions regarding the percent of the loan that would be at 0% and how that would be judged by the EPA, Ohio EPA. So essentially, they get to choose how much of the cost they'll pay or they'll loan the 0% out on, which was definitely different than what had been described previously. So we believe that moving that award date back, or at least the opening date back, I should say it that way, the opening date of the bids back gives us time to get the answers from Ohio EPA. We talked about potential funding options for Jefferson Street Waterline project. It's been brought to Chris's attention that this project may be available for some OPWC funding opportunities. They're gonna look into that and see. This is a project that's slated for next year. The only concern we had and talked about was making sure we didn't have other OPWC grant applications in there that would conflict with this project. Then lastly, we talked about the biosolids application. I asked Chris to specify that only because there's two pieces of this puzzle that change our game plan, which was, given the condition right now with reduced staff and also with Chris's ability and time to be both the city, to be in the two positions that he is currently in, we thought it wise to move forward with using AgriSludge in the spring to do this process of distributing the biosolids over our fields. And with that, I'll answer any questions.
Anything?
I don't have a question, but I did forget something. Kathy, I'd like to schedule a development committee meeting for the 6th. I'd like to schedule a development committee meeting for the 6th at 5, from 5 to 6:30.
April 6th.
6:30. And I believe it was the committee's intention to invite the steering committee. Do we want to do that? Can you do that, Kathy, or
I can take care of
You can take care of it.
Yeah, I have all their emails and everything, I'll do that.
just let them know and we'll, if they can make it great. So,
That'll be on April 6th at 5 p.m.
5 p.m. Is to discuss the purpose is to discuss the comprehensive plan.
Good?
I was gonna mention that if, there may be when we get to the discussion about, scenic view, there may be also an option that if that needs to be
That's a good
discussed,
point,
we
yeah.
could discuss that also.
How about just add a second thing, any other business, and then that gives us some flexibility. So,
Can you just email me what your final
Sure,
purpose will
yeah.
be?
yeah,
That'd be
or I'll tell you,
great.
at the end of the night.
Okay.
Anything else? And I actually forgot something, I didn't have a report tonight, but I did want to thank staff. It seems now that we're in this little bit of an emergency, that nothing has changed around here. You guys are still going 5,000 miles an hour under Chris's direction, and even though we've had an emergency, I've seen no shift. You guys are still giving 10,000%, so thank you. And somebody mentioned Jefferson Street, and that made me think, Tommy, since you're on the board now, fire board, please work with Mr. Schrock and Alan, because I know we're trying to coordinate that Jefferson Street blacktopping project that's around the old fire station, and they want to make sure that when they get ready to pave that they're doing, we've talked about this before, there's drainage issues. Just everybody work together on
Yeah,
that.
and with that being said, Alan, and if Bruce was here, obviously, that goes without saying, but Alan and Chris, if I'm at work and you can't get to me, just go to the fire department, like, but you don't need to,
But
have waters with me.
I don't know if you're gonna be on the Buildings and Grounds Committee, but I just wanna make sure the fire
Yeah.
board knows to work with Alan
Yeah.
and Chris on this project, so we can finally get it paved. So, thank you. Anything else? Committee chair reports, all done? All right, going on to unfinished business. Any desire to take 2019-4341 off the table?
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to make a motion to bring 2019-4341 off the table.
Got a motion to take it off the table.
Second.
Seconded by Mr. Barstow. Discussion? And roll.
Walter,
No.
Epperson,
Abstain.
Barstow,
Yes.
Hampshire,
Yes.
Lee,
Yes.
Carter.
Yes.
Okay, motion to take it off the table has been approved, so, what reading are we at with this?
We have had all 3 readings for discussion and then a motion to adopt.
Okay, so, Mr. Zett, so I asked for a, do we just read the ordinance, have Kathy read it?
Had the third reading.
We've had the 3rd reading.
Okay, so we just go into discussion?
Yes.
Okay.
Does it have to go for a fourth?
Well, I mean, it wasn't amended, well, I don't remember what happened at the 3rd reading, it was just tabled, it was read
It
and
was just
tabled without a
tabled.
vote. Right, so you're just back to discussion and potential vote.
Okay, discussion on 4341, I assume you've taken it off for a reason, so go ahead.
Yeah, I'll start.
Okay.
Basically, what I had brought up at the development committee meeting was I've taken some time. I know that the owners have been great to work with, and you know our staff has echoed that. They have they back in the summer they went back and did all the things that were asked of them utility wise, and then came back and there were some questions about some other things, such as what happens if the HOA dissolves. There was a number of questions, and from what I read when this was sent back out, maybe not all of them, but close to all of them have been met. But just for me personally, there's enough of them that I'm comfortable with it. But I just thought that it was good to bring it off the table for discussion and see where the rest of council was, and if we wanna put it back on the table, or if we wanna vote it up or down. But I just think it's been sitting there a while, and they've done everything, looks like everything they've been asked. I do believe that this is a good development for the community. This is the type of development we've been asking for, and they've been willing to work with us, unlike some developers. And I just wanted discussion, so.
Okay, yes, sir.
Tommy, I don't disagree with you that I think this is a good development. It's unique. It has a lot of divergence to it. There's a lot of moving pieces to this, and I don't know that, I got this tonight to look at, so I'm certainly going to digest it before I can, say that some of the concerns that were at the several meetings ago, whenever this was tabled last, have been met. I can tell you that there are a few things that in looking at this very quickly, that I see. They have in there, just as an example, they have a 30-year term for their HOA in their CCNRs, or their declarants here, their covenants and restrictions, and in their other one is 99 years. So there's still pieces of this. It's just not one that I'm comfortable with until it's exactly right. I certainly agree with you that it's a good project. It's what we've been asking for. Give you another example on their tree clearing chart and permitted structures. They've got an 8-inch caliper at 5 inches above grade. Well, nobody measures a tree 5 inches above grade. So there's just mistakes in here still that really need to be gone through and vetted. I don't even know, I haven't even gone through this in any detail compared to the other comments that I had. I know that Scott, it wasn't, I don't believe you answered necessarily clearly to the development committee that they've addressed all of our concerns. It looks like they've done a lot, and they've continued to do a lot, but I would say that this is one that has to be right before it's approved, and that's just my opinion on it.
Mr. Mayor, I just would like to add, Scott, how many of these things would be typically handled in the next, when they're doing the plan and you're reviewing plans and all those things? Are some of these concerns that Mr. Walter has, are those typically done later?
The provisions for tree clearing and with the HOA, when council approves the rezoning, they approve the text and the plan, and that's what becomes official. So those things could be done later, but it wouldn't be the official rezoning documentation that goes with the ordinance.
Yes, ma'am.
Scott, I guess my question is, from your department's perspective, is it at a point that you're comfortable with, or are there still questions from?
I think, to be quite honest, it needs to be, because Mr. Walther had a good catch, it does say 5 inches. It should be 5 feet, but those are some of the dot the i's, cross the t's that I can see there's concerns with that. So tonight it was just to feel Development Committee out to say, what do you think? This is what they're proposing. What comments do we have? I don't know that it's ready. I agree with Mr. Walther that due to the unique nature of this subdivision, we probably need to have it right when council passes, if council chooses to approve the rezoning.
Okay. And so how confident are you with the changes that need to be made still? Do you have a list yourself, such as those, or?
I do have some,
Okay.
but I have not fully fleshed it out yet.
Okay.
Any other discussion? Okay, what's council's pleasure?
Mr. Mayor?
Yes, sir.
I move that we put ordinance 2019-4341 on table. Back on the table.
Got a motion, seconded by Mrs. Carter. Discussion? And roll?
Epperson,
Abstain.
Barstow,
Yes.
Hampshire,
Yes.
Lee,
Yes.
Carter,
Yes.
Walther.
Yes.
Okay, 4341 is tabled. 4354 is tabled. Ordinance 2020-4359 for a third reading.
So moved.
Moved by Mr. Barstow,
Second.
seconded by Mrs. Carter. Mr. Epperson?
Mr. Mayor, I have to recuse this.
Okay. Got a first and a second. Kathy, when you're ready, third reading.
Who made the motion?
Mr. Barstow and Mrs. Carter.
Barstow,
Yes.
Hampshire,
Yes.
Lee,
Yes.
Carter.
Yes. Don't we have to have the reading first? Am I
No.
confused here?
Yeah,
We're voting to have the reading.
Right.
Okay, yes.
Walther
Yes.
and Epperson.
I'm with you.
Okay, Kathy, when you're ready.
Ordinance 2020-4359, this is the third reading, an ordinance to amend chapter 1287, off-site impacts of the codified ordinances of the city of Pataskla, and repeal all other ordinances and parts of the ordinances in conflict therewith.
Discussion?
Mr. Mayor?
Yes.
I move we adopt ordinance 2020-4359.
Got a motion to adopt.
Second.
Seconded by Mr. Lee. Discussion? And roll.
Hampshire,
Yes.
Lee,
Yes.
Carter,
Yes.
Walther,
Yes.
Epperson. Excuse me. Barstow.
Yes.
Okay, ordinance passes. Ordinance 2020-4362 for a first reading.
So moved.
Moved by Mr. Barstow,
Second.
seconded by Mrs. Carter.
Ordinance 2020-4362, this is the first reading, an ordinance creating establishing 2 crew leader positions within the City of Pataskla Public Service Department.
Discussion? Yes.
Mayor, I just reiterate that I do agree with Jamie and I think Alan also that amending this to one crew leader at this time and then coming back later in the summer when we know what has happened in the last several, or what will happen over the next several weeks, may be prudent to do. That's my discussion point to that. I'd rather not wait till, the next reading or even following to bring it up if we can discuss it now.
So you're making a motion?
I'm not making a motion, that's my
Okay.
discussion.
All right. More discussion, yes, ma'am?
Mr. Mayor, I see it differently. I think it's only the first reading. And based how everything has been so fluid and so many changes, we've had a lot of discussion about this. I would prefer to wait until the next reading to see how things are going.
We do have three
before
readings.
we-
Yeah, we do have
Good
three
point.
readings, which
Yep,
will take
that's
us a month and a half,
Yep.
so. Any other discussion? All right. Ordinance 2020-4363 for a first reading.
So moved.
Moved by Mr. Barstow, seconded by Mr. Lee.
Ordinance 2020-4363, this is the first reading, an ordinance to make supplemental appropriations for current expenses and other expenditures during the fiscal year ending December 31st, 2020.
Discussion? Yes.
Mayor, I'd like to ask, if Jamie, would you mind doing the evaluation on the fund balance? I know you guys said that with the overages that didn't get spent in 2019, I just wanted to see if we could, in the budget wise, what this plus the other 275,000 we did the last meeting and so forth, how that affects the budget line? If that's possible to do for the next.
I haven't done my, my February report yet, but yeah, it would just be whatever balance that ends up with plus this 200, because the other stuff has already fallen through.
Great, that would be appreciated. Thanks.
Any other discussion? Okay. On the resolutions, Resolution 2020-030, resolution to accept and confirm infrastructure improvements for the Broadmoor Commons Phase 5 development for public maintenance and operation by the city of Pataskala.
So moved.
Moved by Mr.
Second.
Walther, seconded by Mr. Barstow. Discussion? So this is snow plowing, mowing, paving, everything, we accept it. What?
There's no mowing,
mowing.
but snow plowing and general roadway maintenance, yes.
Well, yeah, we mow the right of way out front along Broad Street, so that's part of Broadmoor Commons, right?
Not part of phase
Section
5
5.
specifically.
Oh, section 5 in the
Yeah,
back?
correct.
Okay. I stand corrected. Any other discussion? And roll, please.
Carter,
Yes.
Walter.
Yes.
Epperson,
Yes.
Barstow.
Yes.
Hampshire,
Yes.
Lee,
Yes.
Resolution passes. Just like you make you earn your money. Resolution 2020-031, a resolution authorizing and directing the city administrator or his designee to advertise, receive, and review bids for the construction of Phase 3 of the Pataskala Safe Travel Plan.
So moved.
Moved by Mr. Epperson, seconded by Mr. Barstow. Discussion? And roll.
Walter,
Yes.
Epperson,
Yes.
Barstow,
Yes.
Hampshire,
Yes.
Lee,
Yes.
Carter,
Yes.
Resolution passes. Resolution 2020-032, a resolution authorizing and directing the city administrator to execute a contract with Suez Advanced Water Solutions to conduct the Pataskala Water Tower Maintenance Program.
So moved.
Moved by Mr. Walther,
Second.
seconded by Mr. Barstow.
What a clever name for a
Suez
water
Canal.
tower.
Yeah.
Suez Canal. Discussion? And roll.
Epperson,
Yes.
Barstow,
Yes.
Hampshire,
Yes.
Lee,
Yes.
Carter,
Yes.
Walter.
Yes.
Resolution passes. On the motions, I think we have one motion tonight, maybe, possibly?
Mr. Mayor?
Yes.
I'm looking for a motion for our vacancy on the Planning and Zoning Commission. You got an applicant, Steve?
Anybody wish to make a motion? I think Mr. Walters going to.
Yeah, I'm looking for it.
Yep.
I'm gonna make a motion that, Mr. Browing,
Yep.
yeah, be appointed to the vacancy on the Planning and Zoning Commission.
Got a motion?
Second.
Seconded by Jude. Hampshire. Discussion and roll.
Barstow,
Yes.
Hampshire,
Yes.
Lee,
Yes.
Carter,
Yes.
Walter,
Yes.
Epperson,
Yes.
Motion passes. Congratulations, sir. You're finally in the door.
Thank you very much.
So I'll be seeing you let's see, you'll let me know, right?
April 1st.
Oh, okay, really?
No kidding.
No kidding.
No fool.
No fool. All right. Ooh. All right. No tricks now, Frank, okay?
All right. Mr. Mayor,
Yes.
I'd like to make a motion to appoint Melissa Carter as VP of Council.
Second.
Okay, I have a motion by Mr. Lee, seconded by Mr. Barstow for Vice President Melissa Carter. Any other, well, go ahead. Any other discussion? Kathy, when you're ready?
Hampshire?
Mr.
Yes.
Epperson, do not abstain from this one, whatever you do.
We're almost through all those ordinances.
Okay.
I can start participating.
Hampshire?
Yes.
Lee?
Yes.
Carter?
Yes.
Walter?
Yes.
Epperson?
Yes.
Barstow?
Yes. And I want to thank Mrs. Carter for stepping up volunteering to do this.
Congratulations, Mrs. Carter. Well, you had this position previously.
No,
Well,
actually,
you
I've
were
never
right
been in
there
the
with
vice
VP
president.
position.
I was vice president when she was
That's true.
president, so but that's fine, it's good, it's good, I appreciate it. I also, again, thank Mr. Walter for stepping up to the utility committee, so we've got somebody there, and, very good, appreciate it, thank you.
Okay. Any other motions tonight? All right, additional citizens' comments. Anybody wish to speak about anything that we have talked about tonight? Okay, seeing none. So Frank, they'll get with you on your first meeting, come about 15 minutes early. If you want to bring your wife or family, we'll swear you in and get you on there, okay? And thank you for sticking it out and getting your foot in the door. This is great. What do you got for me, Mr. Barstow?
Mr. Mayor, I move we go into executive session pursuant to revised code section 121.22G3 to conference with an attorney for the city concerning a dispute involving the city that is the subject of pending court action. Invited into this executive session are Law Director Brian Zetz, Mayor Compton, and Acting City Administrator Chris Sherrock.
Got a motion?
Second.
Seconded by Mr. Walter. Discussion and roll.
Lee?
Yes.
Carter?
Yes.
Walter?
Yes.
Epperson?
Yes.
Barstow?
Yes.
Hampshire?
Yes.
Okay, executive session at 8:27. We're going upstairs. Remember, everybody
Congratulations,
vote-
Mrs. Carter.
vote tomorrow.
Yeah, go vote, although I was just telling Todd.
Franklin County Board of Elections is telling people not to come to the polls, and poll workers don't show up.
Yeah. That's what I had heard before the judges ruled. That's what I had heard.
Yep. Okay, well, we don't have enough people here to say anything. We're getting close.
We got a long way there, interviews. It's gonna be a long.
He doesn't say something along the lines where what comes out of the hearing.
They'll start tomorrow, right?
They say, well,
Just
we
searching
know,
for the
we
schedule.
know that.
So far Wednesday.
Still?
Yeah, I know, so I'm just, I gotta feel, I wanna make sure this is the.
Oh,
I'll be
I
here
anxious to see how your vote goes.
tomorrow and then
Well, I think it's okay to say,
off if they
you know, the tea
continue.
leaves are definitely.
And they could change that on their back.
They
They could change that on their back.
Yeah, you never know.
They know what's best.
Like, things might get, like.
Look, my recommendation to them is that this is a good deal, and our, you know, I think that's.
It's not gonna be a lot of conversation with Rob, because.
Right.
Exactly, he knows what he. Yeah.
Well, yeah, he knows
I
what
just
to
don't want,
say.
I just don't want him to say a truth. Then
Yeah.
Did I mention your name?
I smell
What'd you
fancy
say?
Kaiser.
Getting around that, it's,
Yeah, yeah.
Sorry, I left this seat out like I'm one of my boys at the kitchen table.
Exactly. He's doing, exactly, he's doing the same.
Need a motion to come out of executive session?
So moved.
Second. Moved by Mr. Barstow, seconded by Mrs. Carter. Roll, please.
Lee?
Yes.
Carter?
Yes.
Walter?
Yes.
Epperson?
Yes.
Barstow?
Yes.
Hampshire?
Yes.
Okay, out of executive session at 0900. We'll just go, I think, around the room here. So we'll start with Mr. Lee.
I have nothing.
Jude?
I just wanted to add from the whole night, even though he's left already, that Mr. Broering has 3 sons, and the oldest one just started in Cub Scouts, so it's nice to know that they will be carrying on the scouting tradition here, and I envy them at that young age, because I miss it with what it has been replaced with.
Mr. Walter?
I'm going to echo that. I appreciate Mr. Boring's tenacity to stay, to get involved in the city affairs, and I look forward to having him on planning and zoning with us. Thanks.
Okay, Mr. Barstow.
Mr. Mayor, thank you. As we know, that we have a opening on council for Ward 4, and I'm pleased to announce that I'm going to ask Kathy to put out an announcement that applications for that will be accepted. Obviously, I'll work with you on the language, Kathy. The deadline for those applications will be April the 3rd. And council, I'm looking at scheduling a special meeting to do those interviews after April the 6th, but prior to April the 15th, which is our 60-day deadline. So any suggestions on that?
Kathy?
I'd have to have my calendar in front of me. Can I get back with you on that?
Could you get your calendar?
Sure.
Or I can get it for you?
Oh. Maybe I can do it with the phone.
Okay. Just looking for council for some, I don't think it'll be, this is just Ward 4, and it's only one opening, so it won't be as strenuous as our last adventure, which was fun, but it was strenuous.
I'm good.
Nothing
Now,
personal.
any one of those days in between, I think I'm,
Okay,
If
Kat?
we do it, if we have the deadline as April 3rd, packets will have already gone out as
Oh,
far as the
okay.
6th.
Then what would be the deadline?
April 1st.
April 1st?
Yep.
Yes.
Okay, the deadline, will I change it? The deadline will be April the 1st?
Unless you wanna go to give a little more time.
April the 1st?
Okay.
Nope.
And interviews?
So I'm again,
April 6th.
well, that's council meeting.
That's,
That April 6th is city council.
Mm-hmm.
That's, I'd rather do it after that,
Okay.
that day.
The 8th looks good for myself.
April 8th.
Okay, any,
that would
Everybody
looking at
require a
this is
special
Wednesday?
meeting.
I'm looking, Tom's looking.
I could do 8th or 9th.
Okay.
That's all assuming you can all meet together at that time.
8th is fine with me.
8th or 9th is
Which may
good
be
with me.
prohibited.
I just can't do the 7th.
Okay,
Yeah,
sev-
sure.
so the 7th is out, so the 8th or 9th, I have no preference.
Can we meet outside?
The 9th is a court day, as long as you're not meeting too early.
Oh, no, we would do it at 6:30, I would anticipate we do, close as our regular meeting time, 6.
I like the 6 o'clock.
6 o'clock, so I think it will be, yeah.
Okay, the 9th is a Thursday.
The 8th is a Lions Club meeting, and I'm the president.
Okay.
So we just moved it to the 9th.
All right.
So the 9th, okay, the 9th, last call for the 9th,
April 9th.
April 9th. So, Mayor, I'll ask if you put out the announcement for the special meeting?
I will ask Kathy, yes.
Yeah,
I
okay,
will.
well, I mean, you have to,
Yes.
right,
Yep.
you
I'll
have to
do
put
it.
your, you have to put your sash on and do it by
Yep.
proclamation,
Yes,
so,
sir.
okay, thank you, appreciate that. Okay,
Is that
Kathy,
at
I'll,
6?
I'll work with you on the language.
6.
6 o'clock, is that good with everybody, 6 P on April 9th? Okay, thank you very much, thanks for your time, I appreciate that, thank you. That's all I have, Mr. Mayor. Oh, no, I do wanna talk about something, I don't know if this came up earlier, but, you know, we in line with what Mr. Zett said, Mr. Schrock is working with the other folks in the city to get our chambers technologically sufficient, so if we can't have the public in, we can broadcast this out over the city's Facebook page or other social media. Also, I would encourage folks to look at the Attorney General of Ohio's website, because he put out a guidance this morning. I think Mr. Schrock may have put that out to us.
I think Kathy might.
Did Kathy do it? Okay, Kathy did it. Okay, I'm sorry, Kathy.
That's
Kathy-
okay.
Kathy, so to look at that, so if you, we're gonna be working on ways that we can participate remotely and comply with the Attorney General's guidance and the Ohio Open Meetings Act. So I'd encourage folks to look at that. My understanding is that tonight that Columbus City Council met and a number of their members.
Yes, I got an email from somebody on one of those listservs I'm a part of, from the Municipal Association, that City of Columbus actually met tonight, and the majority of their members appeared by phone. I'll just follow up real quick with what Todd said. Actually, Attorney General Yost had a conference call today at 4:30 where people are, Lockhart, from all over Ohio, were able to join it. I actually joined the call, and he's actually now taking a look to see if the governor will issue an order, because there's this real, Columbus now has sort of set the precedent, if you will, by members appearing by phone, which arguably, well, not arguably, which violates the Ohio Open Meetings Act, except for the statement that Yost gave on Friday late in the afternoon. So there was this whole rub of what's gonna happen. So the Attorney General said he may talk to the governor about an actual order that kind of, I don't know what it's gonna do, but in effect, it probably likely will suspend that idea that members have to appear in person in order to be counted in the quorum and vote. So that may be one of the next things that the governor does, but we'll wait and see. But like I said, as of tonight, I guess council cancel all zoning meetings for the next 3 weeks. I just got an email on that, and they are appearing by phone for their council meetings.
Okay, thank you.
Anything else?
And that's all I have, Mr. Mayor, thank you.
All right, Mrs. Carter?
I don't know if everybody knew, but my son popped up on me for a surprise visit a few weeks ago. Well, it feels like a few weeks, it was 1 week ago. So it was, how things kind of work out, but to have all my kids under one roof is rare, and especially when things like this are going on. So I just thought I would share that, considering, you guys had a little surprise with him giving the pledge and whatnot, and he was going to come tonight, so he heard there was an executive session, and he's like, I'm not hanging out that long. So I said,
Smart
well,
kid.
so his trip may be cut short because of all this craziness, but so that's all I have. Want to share?
Mr. Epperson?
I'd like to extend a thank you to the senior members on council for the backdated education for us newer members as to some of the ongoings and the behind the scenes of some of the stuff we're dealing with. And I believe I'm almost through all the ordinances that I was a part of with planning and zoning, so I should be done recusing shortly. So appreciate the patience and make a motion to adjourn.
Second motion, need a second. Second by Mr. Lee. Discussion? And roll.
Carter,
Yes.
Walter,
Yes.
Epperson,
Yes.
Barstow.
Yes.
Hampshire,
Yes.
Lee,
Yes.
Meeting adjourned.
Kathy, I'm coming over to give you a purpose. What?
the fellow from the PDR, he was wanting to get
Did you ever pass it down?
What?
What it was an ask?
Listen.
Yeah, Chris is gonna get back with them.
She was on, she's
I
on.
hadn't heard.
Oh, okay, you didn't, so you knew where that part was.
And I don't-
Yeah, I had that because I was
Okay,
on
and I didn't really
my
care
phone.
much, I really didn't care
The
much.
thing is, you gotta
So
do,
I had that.
you'll have to, everything will be the same, it's just they'll be.
So all he does is recuse himself.
Yeah, I know.
Jeez. I figured he's gonna recuse himself on that.
He's the recuser.
Other public records.
Yes.
Yes.
The recuser bunny. We had Energizer Bunny, the recuser this year.
We had a lot of
I don't think you have.
there was like 4 things in the
No, we have no objection. All we were doing, like.
Yeah, absolutely. We're almost through it all.
Okay, perfect.
No, it's sorry, because after you emailed me, I emailed her.
All right, have a good evening.
Yeah.
We've been doing so many, and then I was like, oh, yeah, that was an email I didn't get to on Friday, so that's how they got it done real quick, because I still had to be, I bottlenecked that process. So then I saw him on before, so I gotta change a couple of these things, and yeah,
He's
that's
claiming
what's good
that
to
city
go now.
officials run around
And
intimidating.
then we have another
I'll be here tomorrow and
Signing
then
the display.
unless they change the surgery again.
Because we only
I
do it
don't
twice
know
a
about-
month.
like,
They
oh,
are
yeah, 'cause
first
now
and
they're
third Tuesdays of the
Well,
month.
family doctor
So
called
they
me
basically
last
follow right after
Sunday
the,
night,
Yeah.
and
You
so
see what
they
follows?
thought they would go ahead with it.
I
I
don't
have
know.
the seventh when he was telling me they're actually
I thought he
taking
said
notes
April,
and
I thought he
seeing,
said
and
four.
seeing patients
That's
as
a
they go
Saturday.
along.
So I
They're not
just
even
wasn't hearing
having
him.
them come into the.
This
He
is
says
And then I
meeting
thought he
tomorrow.
said it was 10 a.m.
where they don't do.
So I just, I don't, nothing.
Right.
I don't know. Like-
But I don't know.
I
hear that,
expect
Sarah.
that's calling.
Yeah.
It's just
Strange
strange
messages,
times.
so, yeah, asking that question, 'cause I didn't hear that.
I thought it said 4, but I can't be right. Right, it's 10 a.m. Who knows what else I
In
heard.
case. They won't tell me till tomorrow evening.
Yeah, I guess for the, does the police station have recording capabilities and stuff?
So did you try on your overalls?
I got a chance to
I'll-
wear
I'm
them
gonna let
probably
Chris know.
5 or 6 times.
So what about the jacket? You have a chance to
The
do?
jacket I wore Sunday.
Good.
Yeah, with mild weather, yeah.
So for the stuff
Good.
that
Glad.
you use
She
for
wants me to pay
Wednesday and
for it. I'm still gonna
Thursday,
get her
can you make sure that we'll have a little recording?
she thinks she likes something.
Yes, she loves
We
it.
still have to like,
She's
yeah,
a
we still
coffee
go into when they
hound.
go in
She's a
there.
coffee hound, all right,
And
good
if
to
she
know.
doesn't use it, I can tell you what, count on it.
But you gotta get.
Yeah, so,
Yeah,
we
no,
gotta
that's
do
fine.
that,
She,
and then,
she
then
loves a
Jamie
good
is
excuse to
to keep
take out
those
her
coming.
surge,
They
or
ordered
surge,
some device that we need to make this camera work.
whatever.
2
So
days.
she-
She did an
Should
excellent
be
job, and now I
April,
won't
so
have
Should
to.
be here Wednesday.
I
in
mean,
time
that
for
was,
Thursday.
those were only
well, we have.
2 years old.
This Wednesday as well.
The Carhartts, and I was like, man,
At
that's
this point, only
that's
one,
kinda
only one guy.
sad.
He's the last one
It
to
didn't
hold
last
it.
that long.
Which
It
is
was
great,
the old leather
but
jacket I've had since
People,
Right.
high school or something.
Well, I can tell you, she puts, I can't ruin anything, cause she puts it back together,
Yeah,
no matter what.
that's good.
So, yeah.
Thank you, Andy.
No problem.
Thanks for your work on the water and
Thank you.
sewer
Have a
stuff
good one.
too, man,
I wanted to talk to.
on the agreement.
I got it,
Well,
I can see.
I'll tell you what,
I just
We're almost there.
I am looking forward to getting that.
I think that's the
Well,
conversation.
and I asked
I
that
wish we would have
question,
gone as a resolution.
but I didn't tell them,
But
like, what do you think, are we
Well,
But that's okay,
still
we'll
gonna,
get it.
it just, yeah, it takes so long to get something done, I know.
Yeah.
Same feeling.
Right, right, yeah, same boat, yep, same boat, that's not,
So I need, that's the, so that could have saved.
I think it's a conversation I can have, and we'll have them